Hi, and welcome to Experience Points by University XP. On Experience Points, we explore different ways we can learn from games. I'm your host, Dave Eng from Games-Based Learning by University XP. Find out more at universityxp.com. On today's episode, we'll learn from Jenny Varrichio. Jenny is an Associate Director of Training at United Healthcare. With a PhD in education, she specializes in instructional design for online learning. Her research explores how formative assessments enhance gamified learning for adult distance learners in professional settings. Based out of Miami, Florida, Jenny leads Learning Mechanic as an online instructional design consultancy. In her downtime, Jenny enjoys gaming on her Nintendo Switch and expressing her creativity through sketching, painting, and digital design. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Glad to have you here, Jenny. I think that your background is very interesting, and that's something I want to dive into with our very first question here. So, can you tell the audience overall more about your background and the specific areas of expertise you bring to the field of instructional design and online learning, especially in gamification and games-based learning?
Absolutely. So, I've been in some form of instructional design for the last 15 years now. I started working at an online traffic school, building online traffic school courses. I also built alcohol licensing courses for people that wanted to uh, sell liquor.
Uh,
So, that was an interesting start. And then
mhm,
moving from there, I worked at a security system, uh, engineering, production, location and
mhm,
built security panel certification courses. And they also engineered I don't know if you've heard of these. I'm sure you have the little
mhm,
emergency I've fallen and I can't get up buttons.
mhm, mhm.
So I did a lot of trainings for those.
Yep.
And for the last 8 years, I've been at United Healthcare supporting training for call center agents nationwide. And now
Mhm,
in my current role, I design for contract negotiators who are negotiating contracts with hospitals, individual providers, medical groups, and the like throughout the country. So, when it comes to games-based learning and gamification, my
mhm,
interest in that started during my doctoral work and dissertation research.
mhm,
And I learned more about its effectiveness, even in the corporate spaces. So, over the years, I've looked at ways of integrating gamified elements and games-based learning into those corporate environments that I've been working in.
mhm.
And this has been successful, sometimes unsuccessful. And I feel like I still have a ton to learn and experiment with.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that, Jenny. I think that your background is actually pretty common from what I hear about other people who've come into the world of instructional design. So, for disclosure, I am also an instructional designer, also a curriculum developer. And I think designing for multiple different audiences is always really interesting. Like you brought up before about designing for that traffic school and also designing for alcohol licensing, like the audiences in which we design for can be very diverse, but usually those outcomes are generally the same. Is it okay for you to share like some of those learning outcomes you were designing for those different populations?
Yeah, yeah. So when it came to the alcohol licensing
Hmm.
and online driving school, the online driving school was a wide range of learners,
Hmm.
anyone that's driving or preparing to drive. So,
Yep.
or maybe made some bad decisions while driving, wants to go back.
Yeah.
So there were some different courses that met those needs, and
Hmm.
then there was assessment based. Outcomes there. So if you
Hmm.
passed the assessment, you went back to the DMV, that kind of thing measured their success there. And
Yep.
with the alcohol licensing, it was actually at the same company. Uh,
Hmm.
very similar.
Yep.
There were state regulations that really dictated how the course materials needed to be communicated. So
Hmm.
every state had a different course and different expectations. So that was kind of interesting. So while all the learners were, liquor store owners, restaurant owners, those kinds of folks, uh, the regulations really changed how the learning was developed and put together.
Oh, I
So
see.
yeah, so there's a couple examples if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And now I think that this is the really interesting part here. I want to jump into our second question, which is you talked about learning about gamification and games-based learning through your doctoral research. So specifically, I'd like to know, in your research, you explored the decision-making processes of instructional designers in creating formative games-based activities for workplace learning. So could you share with me and the audience some key findings or insights from your study and how this knowledge might benefit educators and instructional designers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I explored that strategic use of formative game elements through expert interviews. It was a qualitative study. And when I say formative game elements, I'm talking about formative assessments that are used within gamified or games-based learning that may not look like your traditional quiz,
Uh-huh.
in the midst of a training.
Mhm.
So it's getting them ready to get to that learning goal, making sure they're meeting the objectives, letting them know how they're doing. There's a lot of rapid feedback that games can provide that makes it really kind of a cool space to learn and design for.
Mhm.
So uh, I interviewed 12 expert designers that were internationally based. There
Mhm.
was a few US folks. There was someone from Portugal, Egypt, Brazil,
Mhm.
Germany. So going back to like all those diverse perspectives, it was really exciting to work in and finding again what those commonalities were and those key findings.
Mhm.
Um, so there are three areas that I found key findings in with this study. First was the planning phase with focusing on audience analysis.
Mhm.
Second was iteration and prototyping for as being a vital design strategy. And then design decisions that are aimed at triggering audience motivation and engagement. So I'll talk
Mhm.
about each of those.
Mhm.
Um, in that preparation phase, all of the designers prioritized audience analysis really as a first thing to do.
Mhm.
They gathered insights through surveys, polling, interviews,
Mhm.
stakeholder meetings, and they also talked about maintaining kind of some mental flexibility in that space
Mhm.
and reflecting on where their biases came in because as someone who also plays games, I'm sure you have your favorite games, so you go to your favorite things you like to do.
Mhm.
So they talked about the importance of reflecting on that and like, do I want to put this in there, or is it because I like it and my audience wouldn't be, they'd be neutral or they wouldn't like it. So
Mhm.
that was kind of going into an iteration space, which is the next place where um, all of them talked about iteration and prototyping
Mhm.
in their design to fit within that larger gamified system or games-based learning system. And that again goes back to that flexibility and testing as
Mhm.
key factors in ensuring that that formative activity design was strategic and well implemented.
Nice. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing, Jenny. I see a lot of overlap in our studies here because I also did a qualitative study for my doctoral
Oh.
work. And I think that that iterative cycle that you identified and how these different designers are creating their content and really improving on them iteratively, based on their experience, deploying it and using it with their learners. It's a lot of like what I discovered through games-based learning because games-based learning through games is very much an experiential process and
Mhm.
playing with the game and interacting with different elements and just trying things out. Sometimes
Yeah.
you'll meet expectations, sometimes you won't, but it's that entire action-based aspect of playing the game and experimenting that is really the crux for how games are used, at least in my study for game teaching and learning.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree.
All right. So I want to jump into our third and last question here. And
Mhm.
this is something we talked about a little bit in your intro and in your bio. So you talked a little bit about the launch of your consultancy called The Learning Mechanic. So can you share some insights into the inspiration behind this venture and what unique services or products you plan to offer in the field of instructional design and consulting?
Absolutely. I'm really excited about this. I wanted to create an online space for instructional designers, learning and development professionals, people who haven't really started a career in this space, but they're interested in it.
Hmm.
I want to create a space where um, if you want to learn more about how to start a micro learning project, a
Hmm.
gamified learning project, this is the ground zero as far
Hmm.
as there'll be courses available, templates,
Hmm.
blogs, and that kind of thing to help guide them in exploring, what works best for them and their organization, or if they're on their own, what works best for them. And in addition to those resources, I'm going to be also offering consultative services for
Hmm.
those navigating, the complexities of implementing learning programs or events.
Hmm.
So I'll be able to help walk them through different ideas, explore options, talk about learning environments, and look at what's available within their space, such as,
Hmm.
tech specifications, timing, budget, learner needs. So everything that they would need as a just a straightforward support to tailor to helping them make a positive impact with their learning design.
I see. Great. And then how did you come up with a name? Because I have an idea, but I wanted to hear from you first.
Learning mechanic, I kind of was playing around with the concept of, you know, um, there's all these different instructional design models and
Hmm.
frameworks and things. And I kind of was picturing it like a car or some
Hmm.
kind of machine and
Hmm.
taking different pieces and making it work into something a specific way or tweaking something so it works a little bit smoother, that kind of thing. So that's where the mechanic piece came into mind.
Oh, I see. I thought it was a portmanteau of learning outcome and game mechanic, and you just kind of mushed them together.
Oh, maybe on a subconscious level.
I mean, that's how I came up with like University XP. I was like, well, university is a place for learning, and experience points is what you earn in games. So kind of just, mash it together and make a new title out of it.
Love it.
All right. So Jenny, thank you for your time. Where's the best place for people to find out more about you?
Right now, just LinkedIn is the best place to go. Feel free to
Hmm.
reach out and connect. And then
Hmm.
I'll be announcing when Learning Mechanic is live and the
Hmm.
services are ready. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn.
All right. Sounds great. I will also include those links in the description and show notes so that our listeners can check those out when they are ready. Jenny, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. It's great to be here.
I hope you found this episode useful. If you'd like to learn more, then a great place to start is with my free course on gamification. You can sign up for it at universityxp.com/gamification. You can also get a full transcript of this episode, including links to references in the description or show notes. Thanks for joining us. Again, I'm your host, Dave Eng from Games-Based Learning by University XP. On Experience Points, we explore different ways we can learn from games. So if you like this episode, please consider commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Subscribing is absolutely free and ensures that you'll get the next episode of Experience Points delivered directly to you. I'd also love it if you took some time to rate the show. I live to lift others with learning. So if you found this episode useful, consider sharing it with someone who could also benefit. Also, make sure to visit University XP online at universityxp.com. University XP is also on Twitter or X at university_XP and on Facebook and LinkedIn as University XP. Also, feel free to email me anytime. My email address is dave at universityxp.com. Game on.